Morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. I think we've got, here we go. That panicked me then. I couldn't see who we have on the meeting, but I can see that now, so it's good. We'll give everyone a couple of seconds just to come in. Hope everyone is feeling recovered from RecFest if you were able to make it. I certainly know it took me a day or two to actually overcome what was a very long day. I think it was about a 5:30 start for some of the team. And if you didn't go to RecFest, hopefully your FOMO is starting to ease off slightly. This is the first time we've done a webinar like this, but actually having had a couple of conversations with both Rachel and Sarah, we thought, one of the best parts of RecFest as an event is I think the additional kind of points of view that you come away with, having had a bit of a chance to speak to people either like informally on your stands or waiting at the bar, whatever it might be, or actually going to these talks. It helps give a lot of context to the conversations that we find ourselves having, but also helps us, as I say, see some additional points of view. So yeah, we thought it would be quite cool to kind of bring that together. So I'm joined with Sarah from Eli Onboarding and Rachel from Eploy, obviously myself from AssessFirst. And actually we come from obviously the same space, but we all have a different perspective and a different insight to that space as well. So what we've done from RecFest is pick out each of our two top talks, the two talks that we all feel kind of had the most significance or were the most interesting, so that you as our audience will be able to see RecFest from a couple of different perspectives, and yeah, hopefully some things that we saw will have resonated with you guys as well. We have only got half an hour, so we will be trying to pack in as much as we can. If you do have any questions, please do pop them in the chat box. Also, if there's anything that you saw at RecFest that was particularly interesting to you, please do let us know. You guys can add as much value to this as we can. But anyway, enough with me rambling on. A little bit about me. We're not going to have much time to speak about our companies today, but you will have the opportunity to schedule a demo if anything stands out. So my perspective is from AssessFirst. So we are a behavioural assessment provider. We're not doing numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, technical skills, because they do have a place, but they're not generally as required as looking into behavioural assessment data, which every single company can benefit from. So what we do is look at someone's most prevalent personality traits, what they're motivated by and how they make decisions. And we ultimately help you pick the candidates out of your candidate pool whose behavioural kind of identity is most in line with what good looks like within your team. I'm also the HR business partner. That's kind of my main role. And I also do onboarding for our clients as well. Over to you, Sarah.
Yes, and thanks for having me. I'm Sarah Wardle. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Relationship Development Director at Eli Onboarding. So essentially, I help organisations create personalised candidate and employee experiences using our onboarding technology. So Eli sets new hires up for success by creating a real sense of belonging, reducing attrition and dropout rates, maximising performance, empowering managers and championing inclusion and social mobility. And some of those topics were really well talked about. Let's say that last Thursday, I feel like a lot of people were talking about inclusion, a lot of people were talking about how to reduce attrition. So really, really interesting conversations we had last Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. And over to you, Rachel.
Morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Robbins from Eploy. You may have seen Eploy at RecFest with the surf shack, the bright orange surf shack.
And the van as well. So
and cool. The van and the camper van as well, which went down a storm. Eploy, for those that don't know, are an applicant tracking system used by hundreds of thousands of users worldwide to support organisations with their recruitment and talent acquisition. That includes finding and attracting candidates more easily, managing and automating processes, and engaging with hiring managers and onboarding new hires with the tracking and recruitment metrics to understand your recruitment processes.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, three pretty different kind of perspectives of the recruitment process, which hopefully will give you some good diversity in content today. But yeah, here's a bit of our images from the day. I mean, you can't exactly miss the bright green from Eploy, the bright green from Eploy. Can't see today from Eli, orange from Eploy, and bright pink from AssessFirst. I think we were pretty standout in those. any key kind of takeaways, any memories that these are instilling in anybody?
I thought especially your stands were brilliant. I enjoyed your ice cream.
Good, that went down very well actually.
We had a couple of those. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think having those bright colours, and we all colour coordinated quite well. I thought really stand out walking through the day, and it started to fill up pretty quickly, didn't it? The day
it did. I mean, for me, those photos, it's lovely to see your stands, because it was a busy day from, I think, the moment the gates opened until 5 p.m. So I didn't get to see many stands at all. So thanks for giving me the reminder. I did pop to yours, Lauren, for an ice cream, which was great. But I think generally from a vendor that was there, it would have been great to go and visit all of the stands that were there. But I think we'll all agree that it was a great day in terms of people that were there and how engaged people were on the day.
Yeah,
I thought that. Yeah. I thought everyone who came over to us really wanted to have some really good conversations. I think that was, I don't feel it was the best year yet in terms of that. I felt people wanted to talk. They're very open to talk about what challenges they were seeing. And, obviously we were running people might have seen, we were running our coffee card challenge where people had to get a stamp from all 3 of our stands. And I thought that worked really well in getting people to have a chat and think about not just onboarding, but have you thought about your assessment process? Have you thought about the ATS? Because a lot of people thought, onboarding experience, that's a brilliant idea, but then they might not have had an ATS in place either. So I thought, that the 3 kind of getting those coffee cards was a really nice way of engaging. Yeah. People seem to like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, let's get into it then. So these 2 are my selection talks of choice. Obviously, AssessFirst is very much rooted in psychology and in science. So naturally, I made a beeline for the talk that mentioned the brain. And what was really cool is seeing Me Vitae basically work kind of predominantly in helping to reduce bias in the recruitment process at very, very early stages. So they're essentially helping you kind of anonymize your CVs. So you're really having that kind of bias-free process by not looking at how a name might be a discriminate part of the process, I suppose. But I think what they did really well, so they were actually in the unplugged stage. And I really liked that. I love the slightly more kind of off the cuff conversations. It wasn't, the rehearsed stages that you had elsewhere. So it was much more of a generic conversation. And essentially they were talking about the different ways in which our brain processes information, the different kind of cognitive or emotional decisions that we make. They got the audience really well involved in terms of looking at different types of bias. So actually quite a few people in the audience could relate to that. They had some examples of different types of bias that play out in the interview process and at different stages of that process as well. And what I thought was really cool about this in particular is, and I've been saying this in a couple of talks, bias and unconscious bias in particular is something I think we've all been quite afraid to admit. And it's over time become something that's been less stigmatized as a topic. And now it's something like, cool, we got this, but we understand it. So we're therefore not threatened by it. But let's find a way to overcome this bias in our processes and really make sure that we're giving all of our candidates the best opportunity to be successful within the role. So they actually they've done some research in eye tracking. So, and this is 100% something I think every single recruiter is guilty of. When you're looking at a profile, a CV, where is your eye drawn to? And they actually showed, I think it was 40% of the time that is spent on a CV is spent on somebody's name. And I just thought that is crazy. And they talked about different studies that have been done where and I've actually read studies about this as well, they'll give 2 CVs that are identical, one a female name and one a male name, and the male name will be selected because then when they read all the information in that CV, despite it being exactly the same, the male is seen as more confident, more assertive, more successful, whereas the negative behaviors would be attributed to the female CV. And of course, when we look at different ethnicities as well, people from certain ethnicities will be penalized because of their name, and if they're given a more kind of Western name, then they are seen in a more kind of desirable manner. So actually, by removing this bias from the get-go, we're giving our candidates a more equal playing field. And I know this is something LinkedIn have done as well. You can actually anonymize the names on LinkedIn Recruiter. So it just says like, I think it's just asterisks or something. But that's also a great way of removing the bias in your processes. So yeah, it was really cool. Wicked to see companies really specializing in DE&I and working from that very, very first part of the process in terms of neutralizing that data. And obviously for AssessFirst, we do so much research in this space. Obviously, Sarah, we've just on our podcast on gender equity, we're just about to release a white paper in this area as well. So it was just really cool. I actually got a chance to chat to the two guys and look at some of the research they've done and the work they're doing in this space. And it's just, I think, very like motivational, very optimistic for our market. Yes, Gabrielle, I will, when we send an email out afterwards, I'll make sure we share the research on this. But yeah, to see the evidence coming through on how DE&I is being impacted in our space, so that we as recruiters can do something about it, I think is awesome. So yeah, that was my first
to that session. That sounds really good.
I think we're all going to actually.
There were so many, weren't there? I remember feeling. I don't know whether people are on this webinar who. I'm sure there's lots of you that were actually there, but it was so hard to choose what sessions to go to, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
It was just so many, and you had to kind of choose the ones when, you know, as you said, Rachel, we were, you know, on our stands for a lot of the time, so you had to kind of choose which ones caught your eye the most. But I guess everyone had the same challenges.
Did you guys have the same thing where you had to book via the app, and like some of the talks had like registration had closed? So that
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, they did on the morning. Some sessions had wanted to know earlier before that you joined. I think you could just drop in if there were spaces.
But that definitely my fault, because I'm sure that they sent emails around like, hey, make sure you register for your talks in time.
They definitely did. Yeah, that was obviously you didn't always, I'm sure everyone had the same thing. They probably were like, well, I'll put them on the morning in the train on the way there, or whatever it might have been. And obviously by then sometimes it was a bit too late for some of them, or maybe they'd just been full.
That's true. I mean, bless one of the girls in our team, she was like, right, let's make sure we pick the talks we're going to early. I was like, no, don't worry about it, we'll decide on the day, like don't spend time on it now. And now I'm like, it's all right, should have listened to
I think there were more though. I think there were more this year, and I don't know, I'd have to ask.
It did seem like there was a lot of talks actually. So the second one was basically looking at skills-based hiring, and there was quite there were maybe 4 people on the panel, I think, in the end, and it was really cool to hear people's perspectives. The best thing I took away though was that someone asked the question like, can you define skills-based hiring? And the answer was no. The answer was convoluted and very much based on a certain circumstance. And I loved that, because it was just nice to see, you know, people acknowledging that actually hiring based on skills isn't as straightforward as you might think it is. And basically we were saying it's hard to define, because what you're trying to explain is the fact that you've got to have the right kind of makeup, the right psychological makeup, in order to be able to be taught skills in a job. So you're essentially, and again, very similar to what AssessFirst do, you're looking to hire based on soft skills, and then you can develop those hard skills within a position. But actually what that skills-based hiring looks like is going to be dependent on your culture, dependent on the roles that you're hiring, because, you know, someone who's working in care and is needing, you know, a lot of resilience and a lot of perseverance is a very different skill set to somebody working in, I don't know, some kind of corporate role. So we need to really make sure we're applying the right, looking really like granularly at our individual organizations to understand what the skills are that are needed for success. And again, I was like, every thing they were saying, I was like, yes, this is amazing for AssessFirst. Like, I should be on stage with you guys. Definitely need to do that next year. But looking at like, okay, so look at what good looks like within your team, and that's what we do, right? We give the assessment to your organization. We then use our algorithms and AI to identify the top traits in your top performers. And then that's the benchmark for future individuals that come through the team. So it's very, very specialized and very personalized to your organization. We had a couple of cool like case studies that they mentioned as well. Someone I think came from where they've worked in like banking or something their whole career, and then came into talent acquisition. And like, you would just never think that someone who's, this big hotshot executive in banking, nothing to do with talent acquisition, would have the actual soft skills in order to be successful. But turns out they were like the most successful TA person that this company's ever seen. And because of that soft skill makeup, and also because of the training they had internally, it was enough to bridge that gap. And I think that was a huge takeaway from me as well. Like, obviously, we work with so many organizations who do prioritize skills-based hiring. They do look for that soft skill. But ultimately, you have to be able to back up the great talent you're bringing into your team with absolutely the very, very best of training. Because if you're saying to them, we're going to hire you based on these soft skills, based on this skills-based hiring methodology, you've then got to be able to provide them every single step of that kind of hard skill and technical training to be the best they can be within that position. So I think you really have to be accountable for how you set up this process, and ensure that you've got the right people and the right infrastructure in place to give these great people the best opportunity of success within your team.
Into onboarding as well, because I didn't go to this talk, but it sounds like a really interesting one as well. But if you are using skills-based hiring, then you really need to be onboarding people and giving them the best training and learning and development from the very beginning. There's no point in not starting from the very beginning with that, because otherwise people are not going to know what they're doing, and there's a lot of learning to be done bringing people across from completely different industries. So
absolutely.
Really
yeah,
exactly. So those are my two. I'm
next now, I think. I mean, as I said before, there were so many talks to choose between, and I would have loved to have seen them all, and I'm sure that recruitment events are going to launch lots of videos of you on YouTube or and summaries of all the events. I'm sure we'll have to catch up on all of them. So these are just two that I saw. The first one being a client I used to work with, Dan, who used Eli in his role at Rolls-Royce and GE Healthcare. So thought I'd go and see what he was up to at Sanofi, which was really, really interesting. And this is quite close to my heart as well, because our CA3 side of the business looks at EVPs and how we take EVPs to market. So I was really interested to see how they were doing at that at Sanofi. So essentially they concentrated on talking around how doing it is never a smooth experience. Often agencies, and they mention this themselves, they'll say a lot of things like, oh, we can do this really simply, it's going to be really smooth, this is your plan, let's stick to it. But actually, in reality, and they had a really nice slide up there, it's much more complex than anyone ever thinks, even if you have the best plan in the world, because stakeholders get in the way. There's plenty of moving parts to navigate, and the complexity and external forces are always going to come in, like any project. It was interesting how they were talking about how even if you have a small budget, as Dan has had in many roles, or a large budget, these challenges never go away. Your stakeholders are still going to have individual challenges to you and things that are going to be thrown at you during these projects. So I was really interested in how they then took, they've done a lot of research around their EVP. Everyone was really happy with it, how they then took it to market, looking at both the internal aspects as well as the external, how they took it out externally. And they touched upon the aspect of advocacy and influencers, which I thought was really interesting and something that we really focus on as well. It's easy to say, oh, just, it's cheap, use your own people, they'll sell your EVP. But actually, one of the things that they did was give storytelling support, telling people how giving people the tools to be able to tell the story of the EVP and be true and honest and authentic, and running sessions to keep them engaged. Obviously, rewarding them is really important. And just ensuring as well that the influencers that you choose aren't just people who are willing to just talk about things, but are actually in the areas of your business that you're willing to grow and the roles that you're actually going to be trying to hire in the future. Because the roles that you've actually got currently, they may be completely different to the roles that you're probably going to be hiring in 1 or 2 years' time. So actually you want influencers in those areas. And it kind of seemed obvious, but it's a lot of organisations aren't doing it. So I thought that was a really, really good talk.
Very good.
Sorry, I've gone on a bit. What were the technical?
Oh, good. Yeah. So do you want to take us to the next slide, please? There we go. Cool. Over to you, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. First session I'm going to cover is the journey with Simon Reeve. I'm a big Simon Reeve fan, so it was a no-brainer for me to go to that one in the RL 100 tent. And it was a really conversational session. For those that don't know, Simon's a TV presenter, he's a journalist, he makes documentary films and travels to, some exotic countries, making documentaries based on his adventures in dangerous and I suppose beautiful locations as well. So he's a really established figure that's a regular on TV. I think he's been on Bake Off in recent years. But his early life was very different, and he shared a candid story of how it was different and different to the successful person that we see today. The moral of the story of his session was about how we give young people a chance in the job market and how his story compares. So we see this established person in front of us, but he said as a young man, he left school, I think, with 1 GCSE, he mentioned. He said as a person, he was lost. He'd had no path to a job, and he found himself on the edge of a bridge with some serious mental health problems. And he talked about his climb back into society and how, he signed on the dole and he used his dole money to get jobs. And I think it was Lee Gudgeon from Reed that said, sort of what was the turning point? And he said, it was a bit of luck. And I just thought, is that really luck? And he talked about how the opportunities that were presented to him, he applied for a job, a driving job. He said he was the only applicant and still didn't get the job. But it didn't deter him because of his enthusiasm. He worked at H. Samuel's, the jewellers. He was a post boy. And I think eventually went on and got a job as a runner within the Times newspaper. But he talked about the value of opportunity for young people and how giving them a chance can make a difference. And there was a talk between Lee and Simon on skills-based hiring, Lauren, that you referred to earlier. And Simon said that he was a blank canvas, as many young candidates are, and it's about that early careers, and it needs some thought for how you introduce skills-based hiring into an organisation. He was asked, what did they see in him? And he referred back to it was his enthusiasm. That's what he brought to the table. And he said he looks for similar qualities when he's building his teams to go out on location. Being a decent person, hardworking, enthusiastic. But it was a really thought-provoking session on how to look beyond the CV and tap into the skills of and attitudes of young people, early careers, and candidates for how they can join a business, but how businesses can also support that. Sort of the finishing points on his session were around, young people aren't the finished article by any means, but it's about how organisations look to get young people or disadvantaged people back, into the workplace and making a difference with a clear plan. And it, as I say, Lauren, it picks up on the point that you mentioned about what is skills-based assessment, because it means different things to different people, and about having clear guidelines around how that has a part in your organisation. So, it was a personal tick for me to go and to hear him present, but he had a valid message for what that means for young people looking to get into a career.
Yeah, super interesting. And I think, more so now than ever, like the younger generations were so stung by COVID. And actually so developmentally stunted by that they need all the help they can get. If you're just coming out of university, I think at the moment it's the highest percentage ever of under 30-year-olds still living at home.
Yes.
Because actually just being able to afford to get that first step into adult life is so challenging. It is awesome to have people just being a bit more empathetic and going, okay, let's really give these guys as much help as we can.
Yeah, and I think not giving it lip service and actually, having something substantial that sits behind it. So for me, that was a great session to go to. And the next session I went to was a customer of ours, Olivia Williams from Dunelm. Olivia might be on the call, so I hope I do her session. Just
no pressure.
Hold that all through. But I'm sure I do have a copy of her slides. I'm sure if people wanted to see sort of the full slide set, we could get those sent out. But Olivia's session looked at Dunelm's connection with talent, and
Olivia's the employer brand manager and has been for the last few years at Dunelm, and it was a newly created role. So EVP was a relatively recent introduction to their business. And we went on a journey about how they built a strong culture and built that customer identity to get to a point now where I think she said 150,000 applications they get in any year.
Whoa.
I know that it's chunky, isn't it? She looked at, they needed to understand the market and understand their community and how they've worked to, after the pandemic, look at their changing business and launching their click and collect, and how they had to really engage with the community to start to build trust as part of their talent and development program. She started off with a question about, hands up if your career site is the main channel for how you attract talent. And, people raised their hands, I think, sort of 70-80% of the audience did. And then she asked people to keep their hands up if they rated their career site for performance with engaging candidates higher than an 8, of which I think there are probably, a handful of people left. So that was quite interesting, because Olivia shared with us that the career site is the main channel for how they engage with talent. They don't, pay job boards or anything like that. It's all through their career site. So they've had to do a big piece on their EVP and bringing that to life. And they started by looking at their different audiences. So she said that they got different audiences, for tech or retail or commercial colleagues, and about how they resonated with those audience through that, multifaceted and also multi-generational workforce, to engage with them through their candidate journey. She shared that their careers website was a key feature in redeveloping that. They'd not looked at it for, I think she said 4 years, which sounded quite a long time, but she said that they worked to create a personal experience using dynamic content and really breaking down what the messages were, what are the behaviours of the candidates, what's their motivation, because somebody that wants to go into a tech role is very different to somebody that might want to work in store and work part-time around school hours.
Yeah, for sure.
So she said that they brought in Recite Me to make sure that their website was accessible. Recite Me might be on the call as well, so a little plug for you guys there. But he said it was the bringing together of tech, processes and partnership to make sure that candidate journey was exactly how it should be and aligned to the pillars of their EVP, to showcase all of the elements of their business and really reinforce that personalised candidate experience. She said that they'd also looked at, sort of neurodiverse needs and about working internally to educate their workforce and how they tweaked their messages. So, people wanting to go into their retail roles, the heritage of Dunelm brand is probably quite important, whereas somebody that's, looking for one of their tech or digital or data roles, the heritage side of the business is not the deciding factor. So it was how that they built that throughout their career site journey. She said that they use their own people with authentic messages and really drill down on what it was that made Dunelm different and why people work there. Why do you like coming to work? Oh, because, I like the people I work with. They drill down, why do you like the people? What is it about the people? And made sure that those messages resonated all the way through the career site. She said they're scratching the surface on, in terms of the comments on why staff love working there, but that's something that they will continue to do. To really drill down on what it really means. And she shared what their journey looked like on building their career site. And we worked with them, and we also worked with Blackbridge to pull together a career site that they were confident in and could evolve with their requirements moving forward. To summarise, she shared some takeaways, because someone said, this is great, but how do you get everybody involved? And she shared that there's no need to bring everybody along in that project team. So yes, you need to communicate what it is that you're doing and who your audiences are and your stakeholders, but you don't need stakeholder to check at each point that you go. Actually, you check in with them, you say, this is what the expectation is, this is when I need your response by, if you want to contribute, and then move on from that. And I thought that was quite interesting, because a lot of stories that I hear about people that look at their career sites or embark on an ATS project it's around involving all stakeholders, but she was very clear about involving the right people at the right time and being very clear on what the expectations were. And she suggested that everyone has a mechanism for change. So she said that they had the end result of their career site, which they were happy with, aligned to their EVP, was a really great place to be. But then they started to work on educating their own people, supporting their recruiters, their hiring managers, and then having a mechanism for change. So that was a starting point, and then it was about evolving that current platform. And she covered a great deal, and she got some great questions at the end. And as I say, I'll probably rattle through all of the content that she shared on that day, but I do have a copy of the slides. Just pop a note in the chat and we can get those to you. But for me, that was 40 minutes really well spent on going to have a look at, you know, the nuances and the real messages that you don't always get by having a look on someone's career site. So the 2 sessions I picked, I was really grateful for. I would just wish I could have picked another 6 to go to, but that...
I know, I felt the same.
It was a busy day, but I appreciate the insights that you've both shared as well. So for me, that means, you know, that gives me extra content that was shared on the day. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've certainly had a conversation about kind of making these types of webinars something we do on a quarterly basis, and just bringing together people like yourself, Sarah and Rachel, and just kind of being like, you know, yes, we take away these things from a day like RecFest, but actually we're speaking with clients, we're speaking with other vendors, like we're linked with our community all the time. But actually we could all do with sharing this information on a regular basis and not just wait for RecFest to have that opportunity. So yeah, if anybody would like that and would like the sound of that, then do let us know. So another little plug for us three here. If you are interested in finding out more about how you can be bringing AI into your assessment processes, then you can connect with us at AssessFirst. If you'd like to know more about revitalising and massively improving your onboarding process, please head over to Sarah, and you can scan these as well. And to learn more about Eploy's fantastic ATS solutions, then please get in touch with Rachel. Anything else from anybody else?
No, I just hopefully everyone else had as good a time as we did at RecFest. I think it was, as I said, I think it was the best yet from my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't. I know we spent most of the time talking about particular sessions, but actually, I think the whole vibe there was brilliant. As I said,
I agree.
Open conversations, and the most fascinating things to me happened, you know, outside of those tents, and actually just on concourse, bumping into people you hadn't seen for ages, being introduced to people you haven't met before, friends of friends. So I really felt that came through this year.
It's really interesting because actually it's kind of like a microcosm of what AssessFirst do. You know, we've all said how nice it was to see people away from their like professional approach, right? You kind of see people as they are in their day to day, and ironically that's exactly what AssessFirst does. It helps you see people who they are for their most consistent kind of self outside of that interview process, and to see how refreshing it was to meet everybody in that situation. Like, imagine meeting all of your candidates like that. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good point.
Wicked. Well, thank you so much, and so sorry for the technical issues. Thanks for bearing with us. Yeah, we will catch up with you soon.
Thanks
everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.